morning, class. This is the first micro class on Yin and Yang. I talked a little bit about Yin and Yang in the Tai Chi Chuan symbol in the first episode. So we're going to have our first little micro class on Yin and Yang. That's Yin and Yang is how we pronounce it in Pinyin. The little symbol here, fish symbol, some people call it, encapsulates a lot of information in a very simple symbol. The dark area with the white dot in it is the Yin. The white area with the dark dot in it is Yang. Yin and Yang. Now, Yin represents things like the moon. Yang represents things like the sun. The original concept of Yin and Yang is Yang is the top of the mountain and the sunny side of the mountain, and the Yin is the shady side of the mountain and the valley. So that begins to give you an idea of what these two terms represent. So we have moon, sun, night, day, cool, warm. Yin is cool, Yang is warm. Yin is dark, Yang is light. Yin is still, quiescent, Yang is active. Yin represents the female, Yang represents the male. And in terms of modern physics, we can say that Yin represents matter and Yang represents energy. So if we take these concepts and we apply them to the body, in the body, the Yin material is the flesh, the bone, the tissue, the skin, the blood, body fluids, anything that is material. Whereas the Yang in the body is energy. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the word Qi and the concept Qi, but only briefly because we'll have another little mini class specifically on the nature of Qi. But Qi has been described as vital energy, the energy that runs life. It occurs to me that the way to think about it in a Western scientific term is that Qi could represent the ATP cycle, the Krebs cycle, the adenosine triphosphate cycle. And if you're not familiar with that, it is the chemical cycle process that goes on within cells that provides energy. And you can look that up. That's Krebs, K-R-E-P-S, Krebs cycle. If you have not taken any biology, it might not make a lot of sense to you, but you can see there that there is a process, a chemical process that goes on within the cell that frees off a little bit of energy, and that's the energy that runs the cell. And I think we can extrapolate and say that that energy is indeed the energy that runs the body. And so if Qi is the energy that runs the body, then Qi is the energy that comes from the Krebs cycle. This is my own notion, and I think it's reasonably correct. So, that's all we're going to talk about with Qi for the moment. Now, continuing to apply the Yin and Yang to the body, let's look at the organ system here. 12 major organs in 6 pairs. Now these pairs are paired in terms of herbology, they're paired in function. In acupuncture, they're not only paired in function, but also in the layout of the meridian system. And we'll get to the acupuncture acupuncture later. These organs are called the Zangfu, Z-A-N-G-F-U, Zangfu. And the Zang organs are the Yin organs, the Yin organs. And these organs, we say, are basically for storage of substances, storage of body fluids and such. So the Yin organs are the heart, the liver, the lungs, the spleen, the kidney, and the pericardium, which is the little sac that goes around the heart. And then the Fu, the Yang organs, are small intestine, gallbladder, large intestine, stomach, the urinary bladder, and the what is called the Sanjiao. The Sanjiao is it's kind of a theoretical organ. It's kind of a pretend organ. It's an organ that is actually only described by function, and that is within the San Jiao. That's the 3 jiaos. And the jiaos are regions of the torso. So you have the upper jiao, which is the heart and lungs. You have the middle jiao, and then you have the lower jiao. And these 3 organ layers in the torso operate as one, and we think of that as the San Jiao. It's kind of a weird concept, and we're going to explore that more when we get into looking at the Zang Fu more closely. So you have Yin, heart, paired with Yang, small intestine. You have Yin, liver, paired with Yang, gallbladder. You have Yin, lung, Yang, large intestine. You have Yin, spleen, Yang, stomach, kidney, urinary bladder, pericardium, Sanjiao, Yin and Yang. So those are the Zang Fu, and as I said, we're going to go over those in more depth a little bit later on. But that's how the Yin and Yang of it applies to the organ system in the body. So, when you look at the Taiji symbol, you see everything is balanced. One side is the same size as the other. The little dots within each are the same size. And that's a balanced Yin and Yang. However, in the body, these concepts, these states, if you will, can get out of balance. And as we said, women are Yin and men are Yang. And women tend to have disorders that are more closely linked with the Yin, and vice versa for men, disorders that are more closely linked with Yang. One other thing here, this is the book we're using here. It is The Foundations of Chinese Medicine by Giovanni Macioja, who passed away just a few years ago. An amazing man, wrote several textbooks, very good textbooks that are still relevant and used today. And if you want to follow along, if you want to get one of these and follow along, there's a link below to Amazon where you can pick one of these up. And we're not going exactly precisely by the book or as deep as the book goes. For the purpose of these classes, we're just using it as a reference. But for each thing, such as Yin and Yang, it goes into it much deeper. And so some of you may want to check that out. Okay, so if you have a Yin and Yang disharmony in the body, there's 2 ways to look at this. You can have a relative imbalance, or you can have an absolute imbalance. And the way that presents is if these are the normal balances for Yin and Yang. If your Yin is deficient and all other things are equal, this is your Yin is deficient, there's a relative difference between the Yin and the Yang. And so yin being cool, yang being warm, a person might feel as if they had a little low-grade fever, but if you check their fever, there's no fever there, and it's because there's this relative imbalance between the yin and the yang, and so the body is slightly warmer than it would be, even though it's not an absolute difference. And of course, the other way, there's a relative for the yang and the yin. If you're yang deficient, then you may feel cooler. Maybe first stages of a cold, maybe you have chills, but you have no fever. So there's a relative imbalance there. And you can also have an absolute imbalance. If you have yin and yang and you're out in the sun too long and you get a little sunstroke, you can have an absolute yang excess, in which case you will have symptoms of sunstroke. And then, of course, that also applies the other way around. You can have a yin absolute excess. This is sort of rare. It's usually in the context of also lower yang, but this can lead to things like edema. So this is just a quick overview of the harmony and disharmony of yin and yang in the body. So we have, whoops, let me turn the page on my notes here. If we have this disharmony, let's say that we have a yin deficiency or a yin shu, that's XU, shu, but not shu, deficiency, yin shu, then we would want to build up that yin to its proper level, or tonify the yin to a proper level. In the case of yin, this is best done with herbs. It can be done with acupuncture. Takes a longer time, not as effective, and the understanding of why that is will come later, perhaps a bit later, down the road here when we start looking at acupuncture. So you can tonify the yin by giving herbs. When you do acupuncture, you're looking at specific point prescriptions. And so there are points that tonify the yin. Not many, and as I said, it doesn't work as effectively as herbs do. In the case of a yang deficiency, and we want to tonify or build up the yang to its proper level so that it's in harmony with the yin, we can give herbs for that as well, and that works very well. Acupuncture is very good for building up the yang. We can apply heat to some of the needles, which literally immediately puts heat into the system, shall we say. And so this yang, this warm, which is deficient, you can build it up quite quickly just by applying heat and some acupuncture there. As we get into it more, this will all make more sense to you. Just trying to give you the basic fundamental concepts here. So that's for that. If you have a yang absolute excess, such as a sunstroke, or if you have an extremely high fever for which there's no reason, no etiology for the fever, you can reduce that yang. And you can, of course, do that with herbs, but you can also do it with acupuncture, and in this case, acupuncture is very good for reducing excess yang quickly. And conversely, if you have an excess yin problem, you can reduce that absolute excess yin, once again, by herbs, and that's very effective. Herbs take a while usually. Or you can use acupuncture, which also is effective, but also takes a while. And so if I think about it, a little hard to tell maybe which one generally works better than the other. Pretty much depends on the particular patient. Sometimes herbs will reduce edema quite quickly. Sometimes acupuncture will do the same. So those are the two major sort of approaches we use to treating things, herbs and acupuncture. And sometimes one is better, sometimes the other one is. And sometimes they're both equally effective. An interesting thing about the yang excess here, and this is just one little clinical bit of information that is fascinating to some people and demonstrates, I think, the power of acupuncture. If you're a parent, you're probably familiar with the idea that sometimes infants can develop very high fevers for no apparent reason. There's no pathogen there. Sometimes little babies just start running a very, very high fever. And in some cases, this can be extremely dangerous, resulting in permanent damage to the brain and sometimes even death. The Western approach to this is sometimes they'll have alcohol baths, ice baths, things to just literally chill the body down, cool the body. Maybe some pharmaceuticals to assist in that, but frankly, it's kind of hit and miss. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, maybe it brings it down in time to avoid permanent damage, maybe it doesn't. But there is a really old acupuncture technique for this sort of thing, which is not used very much here in the U.S. at all. Should be used more. I think every emergency room pediatrician should know this technique. And it's a bleeding technique, and I know this sounds like medieval England and Monty Python and drawing blood out and taking a pint of blood from the patient. This is not how bleeding works in Chinese medicine at all. But you would have a little string, and you would wrap it around the tip of the little pinky, usually on the left finger of the baby, so that you get a little red distorted thing. You have some blood there. You cut off the circulation there. And then you just take like the same sort of lancet that you would use to check your blood when you're doing a blood sugar test. You just take that and you just prick the end of the finger, get a couple of little drops of blood out, and then take the string off. That simple procedure very often can help bring down this high fever in infants. So just one of the fascinating things about traditional Chinese medicine and some of the tools that we use, that sometimes in acute emergency situations, which Western medicine really is excellent at, sometimes we really can bring that to the clinic as well. Now, in the case of the yin absolute excess, I mentioned herbs, and we can give herbs for that. And just a quick note on herbs. Herbs generally fall into two broad categories. One is a tonifying category, and the other one is a reducing or a draining category. And so in the case of a yin excess, in the case of edema, we're going to give herbs that are going to drain the water out of the system, essentially an herbal diuretic. In addition to that, though, because while you may have an absolute excess of yin, you may also have a relative deficiency of yang in terms of organ function, which is why the water is being retained in the body. And sometimes you can give herbs to tonify organ function there, a yang organ function, to help reduce with that edema. Now, I know at this point that all sounds confusing, doesn't make much sense, but pretty quickly here we'll get to a point, and we'll come back and revisit some of these basic ideas, and you can see how it relates to a broader idea of organ function and health and medicine. So, as I said, yin is female, yang is male, and particularly as we age, men will have more problems with yang function. Women will have more problems with yin function. As men get older, one of the things they bump into eventually is impotence, and that's a yang deficiency. And then in the female, one of the things that they eventually come across is menopause, which is generally a yin deficient situation. So if your yin is deficient, and maybe your yang is deficient as well, but you have this relative imbalance between the yin and the yang, and you're at that age, going into menopause, you may experience what are commonly known as hot flashes. And to address the hot flashes, we want to tonify or build up the yin to the proper balance with the yang, and then the hot flashes will go away or be better. So this is how we use this idea of yin and yang to come to a treatment principle and then an application of that principle. This is just kind of the basic idea that we always try to work towards, and sometimes we don't get that way. Sometimes we get stuck at other stages. We have what we call the 4 levels. We have what we call the 6 stages. These are mostly related to pathogenic influences, but not always. And so as we go along with the development of the theory and how we diagnose things, we'll get into the 4 levels and the 6 stages. This will come after we cover basic organ function. So a little ways down the road yet still. Okay, so that's it for the mini class on yin and yang. Please leave a comment or a question below. We'll try to get to them and get those answered. You can also email us a question or a comment at naturalprimarycare@gmail.com. And of course, our website is naturalprimarycare.clinic, naturalprimarycare.clinic. We're the original Natural Primary Care, and you can go to the website there. We have some information about comprehensive medicine. We have a gallery of tonic herb formulas that we produce and distribute. And there's a page there also about how to join the online herb pharmacy. And we'll be building up the website too as we go along. If you run into any glitches, please, let us know so we can fix them. We try to, make sure everything is functioning properly. Also, for the book, to the Amazon link, if you run into any problem there, just give us an email, and we'll get that corrected so that you can pick up the book. And one other thing I want to add is there is a book that is often recommended to students before they actually start school to read in the weeks and months before you start school, and that is a book by Ted Kapchuk. That's Kaptchuk. I think I'll have to check. It'll be down in the description below. Ted Kapchuk has a book called The Web That Has No Weaver, and it gives a very good overview and sense of what traditional Chinese medicine is for the layperson. So that book is a great book to start off with, and then this is the basic seminal book that you would start off with in terms of learning traditional Chinese medicine. So I hope that's all clear and stuff. So that'll be down in the description below. Also, we have the Patreon account set up. I think it's functional. And as I also said in the introduction, one of the primary purposes of the channel is to build a coalition of patients and practitioners to try to increase the availability of this comprehensive East-West medicine model. So if you want to support that, you can go to patreon.com and do that. And once again, if you bump into any problems, just shoot us an email and we'll get it straightened out. Okay, so that's it for the first little mini class, micro class on Yin and Yang. I'm Dr. Wes. Thanks so much for watching. do please stay tuned, because we're going to have some really good stuff coming up. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.